Men in military uniforms with machine guns in their hands, not just hanging. Machine guns on turrets in the back of pickup truck. All very serious people. No one there is smiling. And we got on this bus that then took us past more of these military brigades, a zigzag through barricades like you would see outside the Pentagon.
Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. Today I'm back with one of my favorite repeat guests, James Gallo, KB2FMH. And James is here today to talk about a DXpedition that was truly an adventure. James, welcome.
Thanks for having me again, Kevin. Always a pleasure.
Well, let's begin with where Burkina Faso is in the world. Locate it for us.
Central West Africa. It's about as good as I could put it. Few hundred miles off the equator.
And why Burkina Faso out of all the places in the world?
I never understood why anyone chooses any place to go. It's not super rare. There was just a gentleman there before us, a single guy operating as a humanitarian project operating during his spare time, who goes every year. There's been some other Italians who have done Burkina Faso in the past, but I guess it's not as popularly activated as most would want. We also were trying new things, one being the Earth-Moon-Earth, EME, and the QO100 satellite were going to be first time activated from XT2, as well as the standard HFCW phone and, of course, the ubiquitous FT8.
So, James, before we dig into the operating and maybe as importantly some of the challenges you had, you mentioned we. Who was the team? And I think that the team included people from 7 or 8 different countries.
The Italians from the Mediterraneo DX Club.
And is it correct that there were several countries represented?
6 Italians, a new guy, new to expeditions, Richard from Northern Ireland. We had a fellow from Germany, another from Switzerland.
And James, how did you end up on that team? I know a lot of people are going to watch this and first of all ask themselves, how do I get invited to a DXpedition? But it seems as though every time I talk to you, and you and I talk quite frequently, you're either leaving for or coming back from another DXpedition.
I attribute it to my friendship with who I call Mr. DX, our mutual friend Adrian, KO8 Sierra Charlie Alpha, who dragged me into the Kiska Island expedition some years back as an emergency fill-in for a Canadian who had to back out 1 month before planned departure. I was a little apprehensive, but I said yes without thought and went and had a great time, became a member of the Russian Robinson Club who hosted that activity. And subsequently, I became very friendly with the North American liaison for the RRC, Yuri Sushkin, who you recently interviewed with R1BIG about their coming Central American tour. But with this one, it was another fill-in with a month to go. They had another American. He had apprehensions because Burkina Faso is classified by the U.S. Department of State as a level 4 red zone with the notice saying do not travel because of threats of terrorism, kidnappings, robberies, gang violence, murders, massacres. And if you search the history, which I did after saying yes, of course, I then gave it a second thought and said, maybe this guy's onto something. But then I thought, you only live once in life. So I figured I'm going. If everybody else is going, and they're all confident, 13 others, why not me? So I felt that I'd be safe.
I'm presuming that flag over your left shoulder is the Burkina Faso flag?
Yes, it was a gift from the hotel manager. He gave us all one of these flags.
So James, you've set the stage here, and I appreciate that. There's a group of ham radio operators, primarily from Italy, but from around the world. You probably all gathered in Europe, headed to Burkina Faso. What was it like when you got off the plane in Burkina Faso?
Quite interesting. It was reminiscent to me of deboarding the plane in Cuba, where you get off on the tarmac and you go down stairs like you see in the old movies. Except Cuba was a lot more relaxed, believe it or not. Men in military uniforms with machine guns in their hands, not just hanging, in their hands. Machine guns on turrets in the back of pickup trucks. All, military garb, helmets, the camo uniforms, the flak jackets. And I thought, where the heck are we that we have to deal with this? And then once we got inside, the security was very interesting. All very serious people. No one there is smiling. Not even the other passengers, just very serious, because they know if they do anything unexpected, they're subject to immediate arrest and detention, and you never know where you're going to end up or if you'll ever come back. We settled after a while. We had all our bags go through the x-ray machine, open up all the radio equipment where they took pictures and noted serial numbers. And so once we finally got everything through, a couple of us were outside loading it onto a pickup truck and a bus, and we were told, don't take pictures of anything. One of our members happened to take a photograph that had in the background a military person who immediately came over, took his phone, and made him delete the pictures under threat of arrest if he does it again. And we got on this bus that then took us to customs, past more of these military brigades, a zigzag through barricades like you would see outside the Pentagon or Fort Knox. And our bus didn't fit, so we had to back out and take another route escorted by the military people who escorted us directly to the customs location, which was maybe a 15-minute ride outside of the airport, where we again had to take everything out, open it all up on a porch while we sat around and they inspected everything and documented every piece of equipment, everything that was in our pockets, our personal luggage. And then they once they cleared us, about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, we were sent on our way to the hotel, again with an escort. And when we got to the hotel, it was an interesting sight. I mean, if you saw some of those photos, the streets are dirt roads with holes everywhere. Drainage ditches are wide open with homemade bridges out of pieces of wood. A piece of a car hood might be a bridge over a drainage ditch, because when they don't get rain regularly, but when they do, it's torrential. Upon arrival at the hotel, there were these huge iron gates through an archway that were opened for us. Our bus came in. The gates were closed behind us with dozens, if not hundreds of people clamoring at the gate. This hotel, Le Grand Calio, built during the French occupation a long time ago, though, was beautiful. It was a paradise inside of a hell. 15-foot walls with double rows of barbed wire, halogen lights that when they came on at night, or sodium bulbs, which gave us a little bit of noise in the HF spectrum, you could imagine. But we were able to get some of them shut off during our operations. It wasn't the safest thing, but it was better for us to shut them off when they're nearby ones, and kill the power to the transformer that electrified the barbed wire, because it was very poorly made, unfiltered power transverters, which didn't do us any good.
So, James, tell me more about this location. I know a lot of DXpeditions are either on a beach under tents, or maybe they're in a house, like the crew did down in Guyana. But you guys have chosen to rent rooms at a hotel, and I presume you had multiple stations in multiple rooms. Is that how it played out?
The hotel was chosen because it was the safest place to be, with the security walls. It's adjacent to the presidential palace, which is good and bad, because the presidential palace is a terrorist target. But right now they're somewhat stable politically. So it was chosen for its proximity to the city, not too far out in the rural area, so to speak, where we would not be protected. There was a hospital, a brand new hospital, which I couldn't imagine to be there, but a good hospital with good facilities. But it was really nice inside. Had a swimming pool, a bar, a nice eating area, all outdoors. Everything is exposed. The huts we had were air-conditioned, kind of luxury huts. Nice beds, good furniture, good plumbing equipment. As a professional New York City plumber, I was very impressed by the fact that they had new modern basins and toilets or water closets there that worked well. The pressure was not to my liking, because their storage tank was only about 15 feet above the ground, which afforded us maybe 6 or 7 pounds of pressure. Not a very comfortable shower, but it got the job done. They heat water with the sun, a battery of zigzagging pipes on the roofs of every hut fed a little steel storage tank that would get baked by the sun, which is very hot. I mean, Central Africa, sun, it goes together. So the hot water would get very hot in the day, but it would become quite tepid during the night. So you didn't want to shower uh, a couple hours after dark because it would just dissipate because a breeze would pick up. And the wind that picked up would blow this fine particulate dust because, as I said, it maybe rains a couple of inches a year there, but it all comes down at once when it does come. The dirt is like microscopic dust. When we were out at night in pitch dark behind the rooms, futzing with antennas or turning the spider beams, which we used the Armstrong method to rotate. You tie a string on one end of the boom and you pull it, and a rock holds it on the dirt. Our headlamps would show the mist of fine particulate dust, and we realized we're breathing this stuff in, and we should have had masks, but none of us did. And also a smell of burning rubber. One of the terrorist groups had set fire to some old compound in what is a national park adjacent to us, but otherwise it was a beautiful place to be. Would I have rather be in the park? Of course, because at that point I would have had 65,000 more people chasing me for POTA, but to set up in the park, even for a couple of hours, we considered getting a mobile antenna from the local club and going to activate the park, but the guy said, you might not come back. The terrorists catch you, you're not coming back. So it's not worth it to activate a park there.
So, James, per usual, I appreciate your descriptions. I feel like I was there. Now, take me back to the stations. What did you, other than the description about the rotor, the Armstrong method, what were you actually using for radios, and how did you set them up in individual spaces? What were the full complement of antennas that you brought with you?
Antennas, 4 spider beams, which are wire Yagis. Very lightweight, very easy to erect. The Italians from MDXC had them pre-tuned. We used no tuning units or manual tuners, automatic tuners. Weren't necessary. All SWR was flat on all the bands. We had 10 through 40 on the spider beams. We had 4 of them. We had one hex beam, which did 10 through 40. We had a 6-meter Yagi, 5-element Yagi, which was okay, but 6 meters just wasn't in the cards very well for us. We had a couple of monoband verticals for 160, 40, and 80, and we made one for 60 meters halfway through the activity. We had 2 or 3 multi-band verticals. We had 2 DX commanders set up in another section of the property, which was very big and wide open, and all the buildings were 1 or 2 stories. The only 2-story building was the main reception check-in room. Everything else was a 1-story hut or a 1-story shack to do something, whether it was the laundry room or the food prep or maintenance office. So we really had nothing in our way. And radio-wise, most of the radios were Kenwood 590s. Very easy to operate. Paired with ACOM 1010 amplifiers, 800-watt amplifiers. Very nice tube amps, easy to load. I'm very familiar with tube equipment, so loading it was nothing for me. I have it done in seconds. A couple of the folks more familiar with an expert or an Elecraft, they had to be shown how to, put a weak signal in and adjust the plate and load till you get max output, no reflection. We had 2 SSB stations going around the clock in one room, 2 SSB stations side by side, and behind us was 2 CW stations. One of those CW stations could also be a backup FT8 station in the event that, the CW or SSB conditions weren't that good, but we were fortunate with very good conditions. Those were our stations in that one hut, the 2 SSB, the 2 CW backup FT. Another room had 2 CW stations and 2 FT8 stations, which the CW ops were running at the same time. I don't know how they can do it. They're not using a key. They're using the software with the macros to give the 5NN73 with each CW contact, but they're also watching and clicking the FT8 machines at the same time. And then on one of the roofs, we had Emil, DL8JJ, doing his EME. And when Richard, the Northern Islander, wasn't doing his CW 3-hour shift. He was in another room with his 30-something inch dish set up to hit that geosynchronous ham satellite, the Queen Oscar 100, which he made a lot of CW and SSB QSOs, making a lot of people happy. Hundreds and hundreds of QSOs via that satellite. We had a good time using the Kenwoods. I think one of the FT8 stations, they were using an ICOM 706. I don't know why. It was a backup. And the Earth Moon Earth was an 857D Yaesu with a 500 watt amplifier. But other than that, it was the Kenwoods with the ACOM 1010s, which are great amplifiers, rock solid, real punchy, and we had great conditions.
So, James, many of us know that eventually you hit a wall with some issues. And what had been announced to us here in the States was that you were having power outages there in Burkina Faso. But before we get into what actually happened, how many days of continuous operation did you have before you hit that roadblock?
I think 6 straight days.
So on the 6th or 7th day, what happened?
On the 6th or 7th day, when we publicly announced power outage, trouble with the main generator, that was a cover for political reasons. What really happened was we were in the midst of a presentation to about 40 students who had come from a local school with the hopes of starting a amateur radio club at the university. They were brought in by the president of the there's an amateur radio club that exists in Burkina Faso, not very active, but they're there. So they brought people to us, and in the midst of that presentation, 3 plainclothes, regularly dressed special police came, showed their badges, and said, everything stops. You people sit over there. All the radio operators, because the rest of them were locals, they lived there. So all the radio operators gather at the hotel lobby, let's call it. Get your passports and your visas, and come there right now. I was on the radio at the time. And Dario, our logistics man, came in and he just said, "Everybody, stop what you're doing. Go get your papers and meet at the hotel lobby. Very important. No questions. Just do it." So we all went doing it, saying, "Oh, what's happening?" And when we got back to there, these very serious guys in nice, well-dressed suits started speaking to us in French and English, asking for our passports and our visas. We all had e-visas because that's how you get them for Burkina Faso. So none of us know what's going on. We give it to them. They're photographing everything. They photographed us with their phones, photographed our paperwork, held it in a stack. They actually put all our passports together and rubber banded them, and to me that's a sign that they're keeping them. They held us there for almost 2 hours. Then finally, they gave us each back our paperwork. They called by name, and we took our papers, and they wanted to search our rooms. Nobody really knew what they were searching for, but there was a rumor from the hotel manager, who seems to know the politics there a lot better than we do, that they were looking for contraband, narcotics, which are absolutely illegal. Even a joint of weed would be a criminal offense, punishable by years in prison there, or pornography, which is also against their rules, against their laws. So fortunately, none of us had any of that. They went through my medications, looking at every one, and I said, I have a list that I printed out with all my medications, letters from my doctors, because I can't bring the bottles with the prescriptions on them. But I brought one of those multi-packs, where you load up for days. But I had a list, and I showed them there's already half of them are empty, and the rest are there, and I take these daily because I'm old and I have conditions. And I'm not the only one. So they understood that. They cleared out pretty quick. So after about 3 hours of delay, they said, okay, you're good. We didn't report anything then. We just had a short outage, which I think somebody sent a message to Carl from DX World, who was our connection to the DX community, and also Bernie from the Daily DX, but mostly Carl, because he's on Facebook, which everybody's readily watching, that we had a glitch with our generator, and now we're back on the air because suddenly we just went dead. Every mode, every band stopped as if we had lost complete power. So we got back on the air. We apologized to our listeners. Our frequencies were still available to us. And we continued until about maybe 9 p.m. that same night. Two of those officers came back with a couple of big trucks, and they told us, stop what you're doing, disconnect everything, and put it all in our trucks. We have to take it to investigate to see what it is. After they were there that day, and they inquired, and they took pictures, and they took notes, and we showed them how it works, and they listened to us talking. They still decided they wanted to investigate. I think it was flexing their muscles or looking for some kind of gratuity, but we didn't mention that because if you offer them money and it's not what they want, again, it's against the law to offer a bribe to a federal official there. So we had to disconnect and give them everything. And they said the antennas you could do tomorrow. They're coming back at noon to take all the antennas. And we said, antennas and cables for what? They want all the equipment. They got to make sure it's all up to snuff, let's say. Okay, not my call. I'm just, a worker bee. So what Antonio, the lead, and Dario, who was really the lead because he spoke French, English, and Italian, and a very little bit of German, which is pretty cool. I mean, the more I get around, the more you meet people who are just so amazing. I know English, and that's it. Anyway, we woke up the next morning before sunrise because it gets hot once the sun comes up. And we've stripped all the antennas, rolled up the coils, and put them. They sent a luxury tour bus for us, the Federales. So we loaded everything into the cargo bays there. We didn't know if we would be detained and for what length of time, an hour, a day, a week. So I took all my medications. I took some water. We took our passports, phone charger, cables, and whatever we might need had we been detained. And we went under escort again to the police station where we all got off the bus, and then that bus left and took our equipment somewhere else. We had called our representatives, our embassies, of which there is a U.S. embassy in Burkina Faso, and I found a number for them where they answered there, called, and to my dismay, Kevin, I was told, Mr. Gallo, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do, you're on your own. We told you not to go. And I said, that's very nice of you. So if I'm detained here, there's nothing the United States will do to help me. And they said, no, we can't engage. If you need a lawyer, you'll have to hire a local lawyer if you're arrested. So I said, well, thankfully, the Italian ambassador is here. The German consul is already here. And they're going to help us all. But I was just hoping that the United States would have some guts and send somebody here, because you're only 3 blocks away from the police station in the heart of the city. And they apologized again. We're sorry, we can't get involved in the local politics. We make it very clear on our Department of State website that we don't want U.S. citizens to go there, and we will offer no support. So that was troubling for me. But lo and behold, apparently the chief of police arrives with big fanfare, and he was a big shot because the car he came in had no license plates at all on it. And when he got out, 4 people walked around him as he waved his way through in beautiful, local garb. Antonio and Dario were taken upstairs into the police chief's room. They had called the director of the telecommunications division, who issued us the license, which we had valid licenses. All of our licenses were recorded as, we're legitimate legal operators. We got the permissions to use that call sign, XT2MD. And we all, we had thought that there was going to be problems, but within 10 minutes of going into this office, the team leader and manager came out, Antonio and Dario, and they came out smiling like like the cat who ate the mouse, with the big Cheshire grin on their face saying, everything's okay, we're good to go. We waited for our bus to come. It came, but it didn't have the antennas on it. We were promised our equipment, but our equipment didn't come that day. But we got to go back and we just sat around and, talked about things, telling stories and bitching about it and eating, drinking. A lot of beer was consumed. I'm not a beer drinker, but a lot of the Europeans love their beer. And later on that afternoon, some fella comes. I think he was called by the hotel manager. Some real old gentleman in true, like, African royalty garb. Yeah, I think I sent you the picture of me shaking his hand. Turns out that gentleman is the blood uncle of the current military leader stroke president who lives next door to us in his presidential compound. And he asked some questions, and he started to tell us about him, and I'm sitting right next to him when he says, oh, by the way, besides being the ambassador to the U.S., the ambassador to Germany, I was the leader of this. I was also the chief scout of all Boy Scouts in sub-Saharan Africa for 40 years. That sparked me to stand up and go shake his hand, which is the photograph, because I said, of all the other things you do, means nothing to me, your political stuff, but I'm very involved with the Boy Scouts and was a member as a youth, and for the last 30 years as an adult, very involved in New York City and United States Boy Scouting with adult leader training, youth training, and program development. And he said, really, that's so impressive. I have never met anyone else involved in scouting from outside of this country. And I said, well, it's my pleasure to meet you, and I want to thank you for your service to the youth here in Africa, because it seems clearly they need it more than any other country. And he said, yes, to the effect of you darn tootin', they do, because it's either, that program which steers them towards leaders or crime and drugs and living in a hellhole. So that moment in time captured of, he and I shaking hands with him with that clasp, like to show his power. He's holding my arm as we're shaking hands. It immortalizes the whole trip for me. But I then said, and so did some others, saying, is there any way you could get our equipment back? We're doing nothing here. We're sitting on our thumbs. We came here to be on the radio. And he said, yes, I will try. I will make some contacts. And he left. And later that night, we got a call that your equipment is available. You can come get it. So the hotel manager and the fella who runs the gift shop there, the store, got 2 trucks and took a few of our guys into the city to the police locations. They was in 2 separate places where they had gotten all our equipment back, and it came back by about 11 p.m. with all the loading, and they got flat tires on the way back. But because of this influential man's help and presence and involvement, imagine 2 trucks through the dark of night, through this hellhole of a city, going through that gauntlet of crime, getting 2 flat tires, did not get robbed. They helped fix the tires, because they only had 1 spare. 1 truck got 2 flats. The other truck made it through, and there was a motorcycle escort. But one of the locals, or a couple of the local people there, donated a tire for the second flat repair, and our equipment came back, and we were so excited that we spent the next several hours putting up, getting at least 3 spider beams, 1 DX Commander back up, and getting the equipment set up. So, we had 13 people working like bees, doing antennas, who's doing cables, who's setting equipment, making connections, getting the computers back online. I mean, they took everything down to a barrel connector. They took everything. So we had to sort everything out, find the foot pedals, the headsets, the mice for the computer. It was a nightmare, but by, let's say, 1 a.m. local time, which happened to coincide directly with Universal time, we were right on Zulu time. We were back on the air with 2 SSB stations and one FT8 station. Then we got a CW up, and then some of us just stayed on the radio while others went to sleep because we were exhausted from all the movement and the stress. And the next day, we got everything else back up, and we were full blown, and we apologized again for the power outage. And the reason we stuck with the first thing when we lost those few hours, we said power outage. So Antonio decided to go with the power outage when we went dark for almost 3 days, like 2.25 days, because it's a feasible excuse. It has great potential in a third world country to lose power like that. Nobody would question it. And our fear was that the government listens to communications and they read and they watch social media. So we didn't want to put any bad light on the local Burkina Faso government for fear of reprisal, of course. You never know with them. And we were just nervous about being able to continue what we were doing without being arrested and detained there. So,
James, after that incident, was there any sense that you should just pack up the gear and head home?
some of us thought that, why bother? But Antonio, again, team leader, we listened to him. Some of us said, and I was included, I said, why don't we just call it a day and just, leave it, and we'll wait another 3 days until we leave. And he said, no, we didn't come here for that. We got to make as many cues and catch up for the lost time. We'll never recover it, but we're going to do as much as we can because now we feel that we're okay now. It's not going to happen again. And the consensus was, okay, whatever the boss wants to do. So we continued along that path. We maintained our shifts, 3 hours on, 6 hours off, 3 hours on, off, back and forth, little sleep, little eat. And we kept going until the last day when we just woke up and threw everything into our bags, got on the bus again. They sent that nice luxury tour bus for us compared to the bus we went on, which we didn't think was going to make it because every time the guy shifted gears, you could hear the clutch ripping. And when we went over potholes, which was every 30 feet along the two or 3 mile route, the bus just rattled, and we didn't think it was going to make it, but it did. But it was a nice Russian-made tour bus, air-conditioned, videos on, fold-down video displays, plug-in headsets, charge your phone in the seat. Really luxury. I was surprised. And then getting back to the airport, again, past all the security, the zigzagging, the customs again. Hopefully we weren't late for our flight. We barely made it onto the flight. And we were just happy. Once we sat on that plane on the tarmac, we felt okay. We made it out. It's barring anything stopping the plane from taking off. But once they pulled that ladder away and the plane starts to taxi, that's when we just went, we made it through. It's over. It's done. We didn't hit the 100,000 Qs we wanted, but we had 75, 76,000. It was still fun. Not a lot of dupes because we had a live stream going. Not the Club Log live stream. These fellas in Europe developed their own software for proprietary logging and live streaming, which is much better than Club Log's live streaming. You could check any stats you want while it's happening to see how, where the strengths are, what bands, what modes, and watch it in real time.
James, I think that's a great place to end the conversation. 76,000 QSOs in the log. You overcame some substantial difficulties. I appreciate the effort you and the team made, and I really appreciate you taking time today to tell us about it.
My pleasure, and I can tell you I can't wait to do it again. We're going to discuss the next adventure in Friedrichshafen, and I really wish you would find your way to come there. Not only is it, DX heavy, all the big contesters go there, and they all hang out at the Bavarian Contest Club booth. And then we have the BCC dinner, which draws about 200 of the world's top contesters. So with that in mind, see if you could squeeze it out. It's the last weekend in June.
I'm certainly tempted. As you know, I've been interviewing a lot of European contesters lately, so I'd love to have the
They'll all
opportunity to
be
meet
there.
some of these guys in person. James, I really appreciate it. I've been talking to James Gallo, KB2 FMH. He just recapped the XT2 MD DXpedition. Pretty remarkable experience. James, thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. As always, my pleasure.